I'm gonna try something that's way before my time. I was born in 97. I know, I'm practically a skeleton at this point. Around 1993-ish is when games started to make sense. They started to take shape that I'm most familiar with, taking their worlds into the third dimension. PlayStation 2, PlayStation 1, a little bit of Xbox, a little bit of GameCube, hell, even a tiny little bit of N64. These are the systems I'm most familiar with growing up. It's within the last 10 years or so that I've truly gone back and tried to build from a collection of games from a time that I'm unfamiliar with. That's not to say I have absolutely no experience with NES titles or SNES games or anything like that. I like Castlevania, Mega Man, Zelda, frickin' Mario. No, I know those well enough. I'm talking titles that nobody talks about. Titles that nobody remembers. Titles that secondhand stores have a hard time getting rid of because nobody seems to give a crap about them. And I'm not talking about sports games either. No, I'm talking about Wizards and Warriors for the NES. I'm always scared to jump into an NES title because saving is practically non-existent in a majority of titles from the 80s. You either beat the game, or you start all over again after losing all of your lives. There are exceptions, of course, but retention was the name of the game. That's always been the name of the game, but instead of putting a vertical video of Subway surfers on the side of the screen, they had to come up with something else. Mom and Dad weren't always willing to buy little Timmy a new game every month, so the game had to meet certain criteria. It had to be difficult. And that's about it, really. Fun isn't on the table. Ideally, you want it to be fun, but that's not always the case. They just had to motivate kids enough to want to win. To plant this little demon on their shoulder that says, "You'll never beat Hydlide. You can't do it. You're weak. You're a little baby." And the only response is, "I'm not a little baby. If my ancestors suffered and lived long enough to make my entire family, I can suffer and beat this shit-ass game." And then you played only Highlight for a whole year and suffered until your parents could afford Zelda 2. And the suffering continued. It's not a teaser for Highlight, by the way. I don't want to touch that game. I'm grown. I can choose my own battles. Now imagine my surprise when I boot up Wizards and Warriors to find that lives don't mean shit. That's wonderful. Of course, this presents issues of its own, but we'll get there. We play as the knight Kuros as we venture through the forests and caves of the realm of Elrond in order to rescue various damsels and the princess from the evil wizard named Malkel. Elrond isn't the only Lord of the Rings reference in this game, by the way. This game was made by a bunch of fucking nerds. The game itself is a platformer where you fight various creatures such as bats, birds, spiders, hell, even the odd fire spirit. As I said earlier, death is a complete non-issue. Upon dying, Kuros gets right back up in the spot where he died, and the game continues like nothing ever happened. This makes the game about as hard as the player wants, which I think is a good thing overall. If your goal is to just beat the game, it's pretty easy for the most part. Some bosses are ridiculously hard for no reason, looking at you, Frank. But mostly the game is a breeze. However, if you want to beat the game on a single credit, then it's kind of bullshittingly hard. This is because enemies just spawn and come right at you at all times, and sometimes it's impossible to avoid taking damage. There are 8 levels total, with 7 of those levels having a boss at the end. Most of these bosses can be beaten with the exact same tactic of jumping over them, running to the other side of the screen, shoot at them, then repeat the process until the boss dies. From the ice caverns onward, the bosses will shoot out little ghosts upon death that have to be killed before the encounter is truly over. If you die here, then yes, you must fight the boss all over again. Once the boss is dead, Kuros is awarded a pile of treasure and a woman. Kuros is building a harem, I guess. But I'm not here for the pussy. No, I'm here for the wizards. And there's a disturbing lack of wizardry going on around here. I think the strategy wiki is going to be my best friend regarding a lot of these old titles, since the manuals for them are practically non-existent these days. I feel like you'd be hard-pressed to find a complete in-box copy of any cartridge game for less than complete and unrestricted access to your bank account. I'm willing to spend stupid amounts of money for some games, but probably no more than $500. I mean, unless it's something that I really want, like Kuon for the PlayStation 2, but that's a whole other can of worms altogether. There are many items that are required to beat the game. There are 2 weapons to be found which make life significantly easier. The Dagger of Throwing and the Axe of Agor. Both operate in the same way. You attack and the thing shoots out in front of you, operating much like a boomerang. I played a lot of Ty the Tasmanian Tiger. I'm familiar with this concept. Little versions of these weapons can be found by killing enemies, which enhance the weapon further. The Shield of Protection makes enemy projectiles functionally defunct from the front. The Potion of Levitation adds a little extra height to our jump. Holding up will cause Kuros to float for a few seconds. Jump while levitating will give him extra height. And the Feather of Featherfall, outside of redundancy, is a slow fall item that allows Kuros to increase his airtime significantly. Think of it like a wingsuit. You'll still fall, but you'll glide on the way down, which allows for increased latitudinal movement whilst in the air. These items are not without issue, however. My thumb can attest to the latter of the 2 items being kind of painful to use. Holding up on the controller for both levitation and slow falling eventually caused the corners of the D-pad to press into my thumb. If it were just levitation, I can see it. I actually like how that mechanic works. However, for slow fall, holding up on the D-pad to maintain airtime is what did the most damage. Maybe that speaks more for my controller, but that shit started to hurt after a while. I would have liked to swap holding the jump button instead for maintaining airtime. Several interchangeable items can be found within chests, ranging from the Boots of Force, which allow Kuros to kick shins, the Boots of Lava Walk, which, as far as I can tell, don't do anything since you still take damage while standing on lava while wearing them. The Horn shows secrets, the Cloak of Darkness reduces all non-boss damage to 1, and the Staves shoot shit. The most important item to find are the gems. Every state has a red knight within that will block the path unless you pay the toll. Try to slip by the man, and he will try to kill you. I say, back you, ruffian! Thou shalt not pass through my realm until ye run thy pockets. Thy greaves glisten in the light of the midday sun. Forsooth, remove them, and be on thy way. Ignore mine warnings at thine own peril. That's fun. The clock freezes all enemies in place for a few seconds. The egg kills all enemies on screen, and meat heals. The most confusing aspect for the longest time for me were the potions. There are 3 colored potions that all do different things. They don't last very long, and the game is so chaotic that it took me a long time to discover what each of them do. The pink potion increases jump height, the blue potion increases running speed, and the red potion grants invulnerability for a short time. The last important item to collect are the keys. There are 3 keys in each level that unlock the colored doors and chests of that key's color. The game cannot continue without collecting the keys, much like the gems. I've mostly enjoyed my time with this outside of a few minor things that I've mentioned so far. But I have to share my journey up to this point that was the most difficult. This is Frank. Frank is a skeleton. I'm calling him Frank because I'm pretty sure I'm being punished for something, but the problem is I don't know what. I fought this man for 2 hours. Wizards and Warriors is not a long game at all, maybe 3 hours at most. Frank is most of my footage. Frank is a freak of nature. He's a skeleton that starts out 2 pixels tall. He's meant to be unassuming in this state, but don't let him fool you. As you attack him and whittle his health bar down, upon defeating him, he'll grow in size and regain all of his health while randomly jumping and throwing bones. There are 206 bones in the human body. Frank is not human. Frank was not human. Frank has thrown thousands of bones at me. I don't know where he's gotten them all. I don't know if he grows them or if they're all the bones of his previous victims. Regardless, Frank is a monster. Frank has 5 phases to his boss fight, 4 skeleton phases and the final ghost phase that all bosses have. Frank has 4 health bars. The bigger he gets, the harder he becomes to avoid. Before today, I feared nothing but the spice of Thai food. But Frank has changed me. Frank has forced me to explore aspects of myself that I never wanted to see. He forced me to take a long, hard look in the mirror and think about all of the choices that led me to this point. Everything I am, everything I've done. I looked deep within myself. What I saw, I did not want to believe. I saw the one thing that we're all destined to become in the end. I saw him. I fought this man for so long that he broke my game and forced me to reset all of my progress. Granted, it only took an hour to get here, but you have to remember, I've been fighting this man for 2 hours up to this point. I just wanted to be done so badly. I started corner camping on the off chance that there was some kind of Zelda 2 Dark Lake exploit, and it broke the game. I think I know how it happened, too. This turned out to be somewhat of a blessing in disguise. First off, it forced me to go to bed because that was probably 1 in the morning. Rookie times, I know, but I have shit to do during most days. The next day, I steel myself in order to make another go at Frank. This is how I discovered most of the info that I've shared so far. I've learned a good chunk about this game with that reset, but the biggest and most important set of info is that the Axe of Algor does twice as much damage as the throwing dagger. The dagger deals 1 peg of damage, while the axe deals 2. That little bit alone turned out to be just enough to win. As for the glitch, I learned that every time you levitate, Kuros moves to the left by about 2 or 3 pixels every time he rises, regardless of the direction you face. There are also different attacks that can be made depending on which directional button you're pressing. Left has its own slash, no button presses are standard slashes, down is a crouch stab, and up is a skyward slash. Not too high in the sky, but it's more upward than normal. In my haze of desperation, I tried both static down and up slashes in the leftmost corner of the screen, even though I had the potion of levitation. The slight movements left along with being smacked by Frank likely caused me to veer off screen along with Frank. I took us both to the abyss where neither of us would see the light of day. I guaranteed that neither of us would win. My time with Frank has only reinforced an idea that no matter how much knowledge you have of a fight, the longer it goes on, the more chances your opponent has to win. The quicker it can be ended, the sooner you can move on. Of course, there's nuance to it, but I feel like that's a good rule of thumb. After killing Frank, there's only one foe left. I complained about the general lack of wizardry. Well, here's the wizard. Malkil, the titular wizard of wizards and warriors. I'm a little upset that we don't play as a wizard at any point, but now I can't say that I was deceived for the lack of wizards. He kidnapped the final damsel, the princess of Elrond. Unlike the other damsels, she has no name, she's just a princess. Malkil is pretty tough. The arena is in the shape of a skull, and Malkil will teleport all over the place while shooting homing balls at Kuros. He's a tough target to pin down, but I found a way. If you leave him alone for too long, he'll regenerate health. It's all a ruse to make you chase him, but chasing him is a horrible idea. The best strategy that worked for me is to sit at the base of the skull with the wall on the left side of the screen. From this spot, Malkil can only appear in one of 3 places. The platform above Kuros, the flatland directly in front of him, and the ledge on the far right of the screen. From here, I would jump and attack throwing the axe. The longer you hold down the attack button, the farther the axe will go. I assume the same is true for the dagger. This will create an arch that covers every possible spot Malkil can spawn. The reason I throw the axe back distance is only on the off chance that he spawns on the farthest platform. This way I'll still be able to lay down some kind of damage. If he spawns on the platform above Kuros, the mere act of jumping with the weapon out in front will not only damage Malkil, but also block all of the shots. And if he spawns on the flatland, then attacking normally will keep the shots from hitting you while also throwing the axe out to deal even more damage. Malkil has 2 health bars, but with this strategy, I found that we can deal more damage to him than what he can heal. This is the nuance that I talked about. Trying to end the fight with Malkil as quickly as possible only works if you can deal more damage than what your opponent can deal. In the case of Malkil, he does about as much damage as everything else in the game, but he has significantly more health than anything else in the game. Well, besides Frank, I guess. And he can heal over time. Speed and damage isn't the name of the game. It's all about patience and manipulating the opponent into doing exactly what you want. In this case, it's about having a greater defense. I'm a firm believer that any form of art, whether it be a book, a game, a movie, whatever, something has something that it's trying to share. There's always something to be learned. With games, especially old titles, the lesson, more often than not, tends to be one's ability to practice in patience. In the case of Wizards and Warriors, I think it's not only a lesson on patience, but a lesson on when to stop giving a shit and just go. Lives mean nothing for the entire game, which makes it incredibly easy for a majority of the game. But even if lives mean nothing, that doesn't mean everything is gonna be given to you. If you want to win, you still have to pay attention, or you'll just keep running around in circles. Or maybe it's not that deep. It's an NES game. Push the buttons, funny man. One more thing. Kuros' sword looks like a penis. I will not elaborate. My name is Box. Please like and subscribe if you've been enjoying the content so far. Tell me what games you'd like me to talk about. And have a wonderful day.